So we have the, what is
Who's-
it?
Like,
I know, I'm just getting the date. It's
You're
November
looking-
8th, meeting of the Conservation.
That's right.
Commission.
It's a coup.
Trying to take my job.
I forget.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jake, you'll probably listen to my wife when I'm driving.
That's what you went to do?
The first hearing is Patterson, not Peterson.
Yes. Saw
Yeah,
that.
Garth Patterson, that's what it says.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good. Garth Patterson, notice of intent, 13 Third Ave, repair septic in the buffer zone.
Good evening, I'm Chris Gilbert from South Corp Engineering, representing the applicant.
So do you have, your abutter notification cards, green
I
cards?
think I emailed those.
I should have them on record then, thank you.
All right. You repeat your name again, please?
Carly Corp.
You can rest that over there if you want. Yeah. I'm gonna get tired.
There you go.
Great.
All right, this is 13 Third Avenue. There's an existing one-bedroom dwelling with a cesspool, so we're proposing a septic repair. The lot has wetlands in the rear as well as to the south side of the property. Right here is the line. This is the interim wellhead protection area. And then we have the well located in the front right corner of the property. This really constricts where you put the leaching field. We are proposing a two-bedroom system, but there will be a one-bedroom deed restriction. We have the septic tank, pump chamber, and the leaching field here. We have positioned it within the existing lawn area. Will be state straw wattle erosion control along the existing tree line. The only clearing will be right here for the tanks, but we'll keep that outside the 25-foot buffer. We have gone to the Board of Health for a variance for the setback to the well, as well as the wetlands. We have it about 68 feet from the well, about 30 feet from the wetlands here, about 33 feet here. And that's about it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Chris will read his report, and we'll take questions after.
Mr. Chairman, members, this is Garth Patterson, 13 Third Ave. Notice of intent application representing here is Farland Corp., Chris Gilbert. Report date is October 28, 2022. There is a file number, but I did not include it here in my description.
2661.
2661, that's right, we just got that today. This is Board of Health proof, as Chris mentioned, it's been pending for a while. The wetland kinda is what put a curveball in the project. They really weren't aware because this wetland isn't shown on the US GS maps or the mass system that we have for wetland areas. The applicant has filed after notification of the presence of wetlands on the site. The engineer has flagged the area and located them onto the submitted plan. The wetland line is accepted and accurate. The septic disposal repair has no alternative locations due to the wetlands. The leaching field will be constructed 30 feet from the edge of the wetland at its closest point. The system will have a 40 mil impervious barrier installed around the raised leaching field. Erosion controls will be staked in place and serve as the limit of all work. Resource areas to be impacted is the buffer zone. Recommendations, Westport Conservation Commission should approve with standard conditions. In this case, file number SE 802661. That is all.
All right, so other than standard conditions, there's nothing special.
Nothing special on this. They're squeezing in a septic that is needed for the location. So, yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
that is it.
Anybody have any questions? If not, a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with standard conditions.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. What's that?
Jake.
Jake.
Yes, I do have them, Mr. Chairman. They did, a lot of guys are sending them by email now, and I forget to
I
make.
borrowed it. It's pretty,
Next hearing is Aaron Fennelly, notice of intent, 1 Seabury Lane, construct dwelling with well, driveway, and grading in the buffer zone. Matt, how are you?
No, nothing worse than that.
Mr. Potter.
Of course.
Yeah, from years of service, you gotta respect him, Mr. From years of service. Look, he's got his green cards, you can't throw him under the bus.
Okay, right now, Westport Environmental Design for Aaron Finley, Seabury Lane, lots 1 and 2. The, property lots, one here is a property line down the middle, and she owns this property. This property is actually unbuildable because it's virtually encompassed by wetlands. So the house she proposes to go on lot 1. The, septic system will be located off of Seabury Lane, very close, 20 feet. The buffer zone, there's an intermittent stream here, and an intermittent stream over here. And the wetlands comes down and shown the zone. Chris has installed this line here. So we're gonna take in, we're not going to the wetlands area, but I've got the septic system 100 feet away from all the wetland streams, et cetera, in a triangle like so. The houses are gonna be located, in this particular location, 25 feet, 35 feet from this property line. There's a garage in the back. And by their covenants, the garage has to go in the back. Consequently, the garage ends up being 25 feet from the wetlands to this corner. The well is going back here, and that's about 20 feet from the wetlands. I have a driveway coming up from Seabury Lane like so, and going to the garage this way, and I'm gonna turn around here. That turnaround's 10 feet from the wetlands line. Fortunately, in my opinion, the lot does slope from virtually the edge of the wetland, that's 107, and it drops all the way down to 100 way down in this corner. So the water flow off this lot is in that direction and not this direction. The wetlands line is demarcated by flags and of course vegetation, but if you walk this line, there's almost a 2-foot, 3-foot drop right back right into the wetlands. And it all flows out, in this particular case, this way. This stream is fed by wetlands up in here. So, that's pretty much it. I got the roof water, being collected and installed into 2 drains, so that eliminates some of the storm water off the lot, and the entire lot flows in this direction for grading. And, there are drainage swales along the road, treatment type swales, and that runoff water will go in that direction and down the swale to that intermittent stream. And, that's pretty much it. Everything is distributed, rolled and seeded, and, that's pretty much all there is to it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is a lot of record, this, for Lenny's sake and my sake, this lot has been subdivided for maybe 18, 20 years, and it's remained unbuilt at this time, so that may state reasons why I have some concerns in this development, but it was previously approved, so we're here for Aaron Fenley, 1 Seabury Lane. This is a notice of intent application represented by Westport Environmental Design, Len Potter. The date of this report is October 28, 2022. There is a file number SE 802660. This is in the process of being approved by the Board of Health, Len, or has it?
No, it's to be approved by the Board of Health and the Conservation.
Thank you very much. And this was a site visit on October 26, 2022. Description of the work: the applicant has filed to construct a new single-family home on an existing lot on Seabury Lane. The site has wetlands across the street and on the rear of the lot. The wetland areas were walked and determined to be accurate as shown on the plan, except the BVW should follow the edge of the intermittent stream to Seabury Lane. That is the wetland in red, or to the right of the proposed home. Yep, the intermittent stream, he didn't show his green line as the wetland, he didn't extend it down along that intermittent stream, so that was a change I made. Single-family house will be constructed 25 feet from the edge of the rear wetland. The site cannot maintain a 25-foot no activity area given the increased amount of wetlands. The lot to the east is no longer buildable due to the extent of BBW. So as Lenny mentioned, this was 2 lots. One lot now is, I guess, has been swallowed by the wetland that I think was always there, but wasn't necessarily recognized at that time. Erosion controls will be installed along the edge of the bordering vegetated wetland flags 100 to 104. I suggest the area to the east be maintained as a no activity area. This is kind of in consideration for the not being able to maintain it to the rear of the house. A condition should be considered to install a split rail fence or boulders along the edge of the wetland line 100 to 104 to prevent any encroachment toward the bordering vegetated wetland in close proximity. Mass DEP has made comments to the appearance of a wetland area on the southwest side of this lot. This is not the case. This is a wetland. There's no wetland in the next section despite the aerial photos identifying such. They actually identified it as like a pond. And I think it was because of the pines canopy that made it look like a darkened area, but there is no pond in that area. Simon Brook is a perennial stream. It does lie across the street, well 200 feet away from the project. But these 2 intermittent streams on either side of the dwelling, these are not perennial streams. They do flow intermittently throughout the fall and spring of the year. These do feed across the street to those other wetlands, but these are not perennial in nature. Again, I think this is a compromise for him to create that no activity area towards the east of the property, extending that to offset the use in the rear of the property. As Lenny mentioned, there's a covenant in this development that requires the garages to be under the dwelling, or in this case, to the rear of the dwelling.
No doors facing the road.
And this is why the design is not favorable of the applicant, but is what has to be considered. So recommendations, Westport Conservation Commission should approve the project with conditions. The applicant install a split rail fence or stones along the wetland extending down to Seabury Lane along the east side. This no activity area will add protection. I've got to include all roof runoff will go into dry wells, as Lenny has shown on that plan. And this is for file number SE 802660, Mr. Chairman, that's all.
Any questions, Len?
No, I just asked Chris to give the owner an option of split rail fence or boulders.
Correct.
Otherwise, doors.
All right. Questions on the table?
I have one, just because part of the driveway is 10 feet, is it gonna be a gravel driveway?
Gravel driveway.
Okay, all right. Because then it won't be impervious, so I'm just concerned about that. Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with Chris's conditions and grant the applicant the option to either go the split rail fence or boulders.
Correct.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's unanimous. Okay. Robert Bronco, notice of intent 2015 Main Road, construct natural stone patio on the riverfront area in flood zone.
12-8,
What's that?
just continuing to 12-8.
Oh. No, the motion to continue to 12/8.
They do not have a file number, so the applicant has requested that. And the next hearing, Mr. Chairman, is also continued to 12/8, so if you want to call that as
So I
well.
need first I need a motion to continue Robert Rankin notice of intent, no file number 2015 Main Road to 12/8.
Second.
Okay, second, Kevin?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, now I need a motion to continue Amanda Rodriguez, notice of intent for 156 Stramwood Lane, SC 802657, till December 8th as well.
Second.
Motion from Jake, second from Phil, all in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Jonathan Costa, Excel Westport Properties, notice of intent, SE 80265337 Charlotte White Road, for stormwater mitigation controls for existing recycling operation in the buffer zone. Steve, how are you? Good, thanks.
Might be a cousin or someone.
the record, Steve Giosa with Civil and Environmental Consultants, representing the applicant this evening. We presented this a couple of meetings ago to the commission on a preliminary basis. This is the Excel site on Charlotte Way Road. It's been here many, many years, previously as Thatch Junkyard and more recently as the Excel facility. The proposal is for some stormwater management upgrades to the property, and after the last meeting, there were recommendations made to bolster the stormwater mitigation measures for the project and also to complete some soil evaluations of the site to get soils and groundwater levels in the areas of the two stormwater basins. We did complete test pits in those areas to confirm groundwater levels so that we're sure that our basin is above the seasonal high water table, so those test pits were completed. And then on the stormwater management side, we did add, if you remember, the proposal is to add a stormwater collection basin here with an outlet structure, a separate stormwater basin here with an outlet structure. And originally we had the discharge from this basin here, which is identified as basin 2, kind of directing the flow almost a little bit more directly into the wetland area. We relocated the discharge a little further up on the property and then also created a grass swale which would divert the water from a direct inflow into the resource area as Mr. Capone had suggested. And that gets you a little bit more buffering of the flow, down gradient of the pond, and then it'll eventually continue down gradient the way it goes today. Same thing here. We didn't have as much flexibility. We kept the outlet as far up as possible, again, to create that buffering condition prior to the discharge of the wetlands. And then as we get closer to the street, we had originally proposed a storm scepter water quality treatment unit here. Chris suggested that we evaluate something similar for the front entrance and also to create more of a paved apron, something that'll keep from tracking sediments out into the public way. So we have been able to position another storm scepter unit here. We angled the discharge in this direction for the same reason as this discharge being angled. It allows us to create a little bit of a grass swale with some riprap for velocity control before the water enters the wetlands, so we'll have better water quality treatment occurring here, and these are baffled overflows, so at each point, we're getting better controls of sediments, oils, and greases. And then we're proposing a paved apron that will tie into the existing paved area, so we do have that depicted on the plan. And then, to make sure the water gets to the storm scepter units, we are proposing and keeping the runoff from short-circuiting the system. We are proposing a Cape Cod berm all the way along this lower edge of the pavement to make sure the water is directed where we want it to go into the storm scepter unit. So one last element, we are putting a little berming up here to keep water from short-circuiting the flow and getting into this upper wetland. This will divert the water down and bring it into this centrally located basin. So we think there's some pretty good improvements to the site. We are putting in we're still proposing the oil absorbent booms in both areas so that we do have not only sediment controls but oil and grease control on the facility that doesn't exist today. So we think without expanding the operation, we think this is a pretty good upgrade to the drainage system, and looking for your concurrence tonight.
Thanks, Steve.
Mr. Chairman, members, this is Excel Recycling. Jonathan Costa, 37 Charlotte Way Road, notice of intent, application is prepared by CEC with Steve Giosa here tonight representing. The report date is September 26, 2022. The file number is SE 802653. Detailed description of the work. The applicant has filed to construct the stormwater mitigation controls in the buffer zone for the commercial site. The area has and is being used as a metal recycling facility. The site is the former Thad's Junkyard that operated for many years. The majority of the rear site area is hard-packed gravel from years of car storage. The applicant is operating a facility that can be considered a site with potential higher pollutant load. Wetland areas have been delineated and are shown on the plan. The wetland line is accurate as represented. Shown as wetland flags A1 through A15, wetland flag B1 through B19. These two wetland areas are connected by an existing drainage pipe. Drainage calculations, long-term pollution prevention plan, operation and maintenance plan, and the stormwater checklist have all been provided. It will be noted that the site has never had any stormwater mitigation measures over 40 years. The drainage mitigation is proposed to the rear of the site. The proposed work is filed as a redevelopment project under the stormwater regulations. The site under redevelopment is required to meet the regulations to the maximum extent feasible. Design includes 2 stormwater basins to the rear of the property. The request to conduct soil observations for separation to water table has been provided. There were no changes to the design in the basins. They are maintaining the required 2-foot separation to the water table. Applicant has extended the pavement to the front portion of the site out onto Charlotte White Road. They have added another storm scepter unit in this section and will treat stormwater previously not included in the design. The design will achieve 81% of total TSS removal over the required 80%. The outflows for both basins have been redirected to provide more setback from discharging close to the bordering vegetated wetland. Basin 2 will also have a 100-foot grass swale prior to the flow entering into that wetland area. All changes suggested were made at the prior meeting, and I believe he has addressed those issues I had. Resource area impacts, again, this is a buffer zone project, but historical use of the property has not required any stormwater maintenance issues, so I think this is a great step for consideration to the surrounding resource areas. Recommendations: the Westport Conservation Commission should approve the proposed stormwater design, the operation and maintenance plan, the construction, erosion, and sedimentation plan, and the revised plans dated September 26, 2022. With conditions, the stormwater basins be installed and stabilized prior to any stormwater discharge. Erosion controls remain in place until all areas are seeded and stabilized. Storm scepter units, stormwater basins maintained as required under the operation and maintenance plan. If the members aren't familiar with a storm scepter unit, it does have to be cleaned to work correctly. They are obviously collectors of sediment, and they have a way of being drawn by either a vac truck or sucked out like a septic system. So as long as they maintain those units, I think this area will be in a better than it has been for a number of years. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Questions, Steve?
No, not at all.
All right. Any questions from the table? Okay, not a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
Second, was that Phil?
Yes.
Second from Phil. All those in favor? All right, that's unanimous.
Very
Yeah, this would be a big complication, because I don't think you guys have problems there.
No, but the tracking, Steve, was the most noticeable, so I think under their watch, they're gonna look more professional with that, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Yeah,
All right, we have, let's see, extension from Municipal Communications, SE 2463, 67 Mascot Road.
Ms. New,
Jeez,
just you say it, huh? Municipal
What road is it
communications.
on?
you okay?
Municipal communications.
What road though?
I think I need a baby aspirin.
Right.
Are you John Catman?
I don't have my hood on, hold on, let me come out with it. Mascasage Road, Drift Road. This is a 3-year extension request. Municipal Communications are proposing a cell tower within the vicinity of Mascasage and Drift Road. They just received their approval through the zoning appeal. In other words, the ZBA made a ruling and it was overturned in favor of the cell tower installation. The applicant was informed any additional activities other than what was permitted on the order will need additional filing. So there was a concern by a lot of the appellants against this project They did come in with a limited footprint, and I expressed to the, I forget the gentleman's name from Municipal Communications, that they are not allowed to expand that area. So if another tenant is to put a attachment on this cell tower, that they would have to work within the confines of that delineated, I forget what area it was. It was not a large fenced-in area. It was a 12 by 12 block for the concrete for the purpose of holding the tower, and then there were approximately a 25 by 25 or maybe 30 by 30 area fencing that is all that they would have in order to place their units for each rental that would come onto the tower. So I believe in that case, if they maintain what is there, recommendations, the Westport Conservation Commission should grant the 3-year extension to file number SC 802463.
All right. Do you have a motion?
Motion to grant the extension.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Bert. All those in favor? Opposed? All right.
Is this the tree design one?
I hope they didn't go with that one, but that's what they did present.
That's right, I do recall that, right? That's kind of.
Yeah, I don't know if they.
I don't know if that was part of the ultimate decision, I don't know, but,
I
Okay,
think it was like 150-foot monopole, so 150
Mhm.
feet.
yeah, I'm not sure what the change, but they did show at one time a
Yeah.
portrayal of it.
Kevin, you'll be able to work from your boat when they start.
yeah, would like to. I think a lot of us would like to work down there.
Well, it's a bunch of like hardwood trees, and they put a pine-looking goofy
Yeah,
cell tower.
oh,
It's not the same species.
No, it doesn't even
It's not
blend
the same
in.
type of tree.
No, there's no such thing that grows like that.
No, no.
If you've seen the one on the Mass Pike, it's hideous.
It's bad.
Right?
So notice that.
It's so noticeable, more than just the darn pole, so,
Yeah.
yes.
All right, we'll do some bills.
Thank you.
WB Mason, $37.64 for office supplies.
Motion to pay.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. We have, East Bay Media Advertising, $331.50.
Motion to pay.
Thank you.
Second.
That was, Jake and Jason. All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. When I pass this, oh, no, it's my calendar, I guess. Does everybody have the calendar? Who's that? That's Jake's. Hey, Jake. All right, minutes, 10/25/22, present, myself, Jason, Phil, Kevin, Bert, and, okay, Tom and Jake were absent. So I need a motion to, approve the minutes from 10/25/22.
Get rid of these
Oh,
minutes.
Wow.
Clear.
We have one that's gonna go back to like August.
So moved.
May.
One, yeah,
Do
wait,
we have a
wait.
second?
Second.
All right, all's in favor?
All right.
Opposed? All right. We have, 10/11 minutes, and, I guess it doesn't matter who go, I'll just say. Absent was Bert, Bryant, and Kevin. Need a motion to pay? Motion to pay. Motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. It's unanimous. Going back in the time machine now, 9/27/22. Absent were myself, Jason, and Tom.
Motion approved.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor? Opposed? All right. Jake and Phil. This one wants Jake's signature. You're the boss. Going back to August 2nd of this year, absent was Jason, Thomas, and Kevin. I need a motion to approve the August 2nd minutes.
Motion approved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, opposed? All right, that's unanimous, Sam. All right,
That's impressive.
yeah, there's a few things they gotta sign on the bottom, there's some bills on the bottom. You can put the minutes in the envelope, sorry, put them in the folder for 'em.
Minutes in the folder, and then we sign the.
Chairman, you have a letter in your packet that, our member Phil has, put together. I was not able, Phil, the way you put it into the computer, when I tried to print it, I couldn't get it to fit, so I'm gonna,
Okay.
I did spell check it, everything else is fine, I just
Okay.
couldn't get it to fit on the paper right, so.
Oh, okay.
I would've had one here tonight for signatures, and I
Okay,
don't think
it's all
the
right.
chairman would Be obliged if I did track him down to get it to sign. So this is a draft, as Phil did put together. It's very well done. It's in response to the Brian Corey public water supply matter. To add to this, we had a site visit today with Brian Corey allowing us access to take the water well depths. And they were quite high, which we would all expect in the amount of rain that we've had. So that information Mr. Campbell felt was still useful. Brian did encourage him to come back in a few months or however long he'd like to test it again. So within our budget of $10,000 that we did consider for this consulting work, I think we still should be able to cover some of that. I think his bill came in, I'm not quite sure, but it was around $9,000.
Yep, 89.
So we should be able to accommodate for this. With that said, I think I'll leave the floor to Phil, but it's very well written and expresses our concerns that we've been trying to address to the state all along. That's all.
Phil, you wanna go over just?
Yeah, I mean, so, I thought I would write this, because when I looked through, read the Buzzard Bay Coalition appeal, they had raised, a series of objections to the order that we had adopted for the, installation of the, pump connections and the shed, and also opposed, the expansion of the replication area. And so, basically what the letter does is kind of walk through why we think that our order should be sustained, and we have the benefit of the adjudicatory hearing on the initial appeal where they objected to the exploratory wells. And in a nutshell, their arguments really focus on what they view as the potential impact of the wells when they're operating. And the SOC and then the administrative law judge decision which supported it, basically said all that was kind of speculative. And when you looked at the standards that apply, that installation of the wells, was legitimate to consider them separately, and that future operations would be addressed at the time that the applicant came in and requested approval for the future operations. And so, kind of using that template, I basically just went through all of Buzzards Bay Coalition and just pointed out how essentially all these challenges had already been decided essentially in our favor, because what we had approved also wasn't going to affect the river, either the stream or the wetlands. And so that the replication should go forward, and that we specifically reserve the right and the requirement that the applicant come back in when and if he wanted the wells to operate. And so that's what the letter says, in essence. The one thing that I included was, the last time that we focused on this was after George Campbell's report pointed out the deficiencies in the hydrogeological testing that went into DEP's approval of the exploratory wells, giving them an authorization to act, to proceed, and the fact that we had relied on DEP's approval and what was represented before us by the applicant's hydrogeo expert, which just turned out to be inaccurate, mildly speaking. And so We had requested either that the approval that we had granted for the pump house and the plumbing either be withdrawn by with essentially DEP should withdraw its approval, and we haven't heard back from them. So I reaffirmed in this letter our position that we would prefer either that that the SOC not approve the pump house and the well, or that they do it on the condition that a new analysis be done for the water supply permit. So, I don't, so I was essentially arguing, even though it doesn't really have the impact that Buzzards Bay Coalition was suggesting in their appeal, we still had, would prefer that a part of the approval, of our approval not go forward because it was based on inaccurate information that we received. So,
It's very well written, Phil, I read it, you did a great job.
thanks.
All right, so we just need a motion to approve sending the letter to the DEP.
Motion to approve the letter, send it.
Second.
Second from Jake, all those in favor?
All right.
Opposed?
Okay.
All right. So Chris, you know where to find me when you need it.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'll have Phil make sure he gets it to me and I'll get it to work. Get it over.
Anything else tonight?
I have one comment on this Excel recycling thing. Chris spelled out a pretty detailed list of conditions that should be on it, but the motion was just, motion to approve and that's it. It seems like there should be something more on the record. You may not have to repeat them all, but at least say something like, motion to approve with conditions as stated in the applicant, in the agent's report, or something like that. So it's included in the motion.
Okay.
You're right, Bert, you
Yeah.
say that.
Did I make
You
the
did? All right, that's all set. Okay. What else we have?
That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? All right, looking for a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
You have a second?
Second.
Second, Phil, all in favor?